Hey there, hi there, ho there. Happy Friday. Happy Summer Friday. So glad that you're with us for Cayenne Wellness Center's August Corner. But first, I actually want to give a shout out to Dr. Bailey. Woo-hoo! And right now, they are having their Warriors convention, and it's happening this week. And so we wish you all well. We wish you all the best. And for those that didn't know about it, you can go to Sickle Cell Consortium, the website, Warriors Convention, and you can also see it virtually. So very happy, thankful, and wishing you all the best. Wish I could be there. Wish I could be there. Now, I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Dr. Carolyn Rowley, and I am the executive director and founder here at Cayenne Wellness Center. Hey now. Hey, Vicki Beck. I know Vicki. Hey, Rhonda Edwards. Hey, Carmen. Hey, Tracy. Hey, Deborah Bonner. It's been a minute. And so glad that you guys are with us. Um, I wanted to just share with you all a few announcements before we get started. Coming up in just a couple of months. Can you believe it? Eek. It really is just a couple of months. We're going to have our 16th annual, even though it's been 18 years, our 16th annual Sickle Cell Disease Educational Summit, September 18th through the 21st. It's going to be held in person in Torrance, California, and that's part of LA. And September 18th, which is a Wednesday, all the way through Saturday the 21st. You can also see it virtually in case you can't come down. But this is one, I always say it every year, but really this is one that you don't want to miss. Why? One of the features, the highlight that I'm looking forward to, for those of you who have heard of and or have met Hertz Nazir, we're going to be SCDAA, who holds all of his work. They put together an exhibit and showcased it at last year's convention. Guess what? I asked, and they are going to be having the exhibit here in California at and during the summit. So, first of all, that's the reason why you don't want to miss it because we don't know when it's going to come back to this side of town. So, very much so, you're going to want to come. It's going to be 4 days of lots of information, education, being able to connect with one another, of course, fun and food. We have our award ceremony, and the list goes on. And also the goodies that you get to take away. I think last year it weighed like what, 12 pounds? And people had to ship that stuff back home. It's just a lot. And you want to be in the presence of others that you can learn from and enjoy. And the Torrance Marriott is a great place. This is our second year. So, hey now, hey Westland from Pittsburgh. Love it, love it. So, we're inviting you all to join us. All right, but we're here for the Author's Corner. And so, I am delighted to introduce our moderator, Sheila Marchbanks. Whew, I've known Sheila now for some time. I'm going to say a minimum of 12 years, probably a little bit longer than that. And I still remember it was a little bit longer than that. I know now when, because she came to our first educational summit. And so as a result, she's been part of that, part of the planning committee. And so um, she's also been part of the our support groups. We have five, and she's been part of the support groups, moderating that support group for 12 years in Loma Linda. And so she doesn't just do that. Um, I go to her for most anything that needs planning, for her to participate, where because she's always willing to lend a hand. And so we needed a moderator. And she says, okay, thank you. And so I'm delighted to our sickle cell ambassador, Sheila Mark Banks. You're in great hands. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila at this time. Sheila, take it away.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to welcome you to this platform and thank Dr. Carolyn Raleigh for this honor to be a moderator for a long-standing program that comes out of Cayenne Wellness called the Author's Corner. As a fellow reader and bibliophile, I was excited when she asked me to do this particular task. And I am very excited also to interface with our author. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Sheila Louise Bennett Marchbanks. I am a sickle cell warrior. I have of course, lived with sickle cell my entire life. However, in the initial half of my life, I really did not want anyone to know that I lived with sickle cell. And then a change came. I met Pat Corley. She was an RN at USC. And I met Dr. Carolyn Raleigh. And between those two women, they have encouraged me, inspired me, supported me. And so here I am today, serving as a moderator. Again, it is a blessing to be here, and I look forward to the chat. Please ask questions, put them in the chat because we will get to them. So, without any further ado, I would like to bring on and share that we have a fantastic sickle cell warrior, a woman who is an author, a professional, a counselor, a consultant, a world traveler. And without any further ado, with the drum roll, we would like to introduce and bring on Miss Shirley Renee Miller.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Glad to be here with you tonight. It's tonight for me. Might not be for some of you others, but my name is Shirley Miller. I am 68 years old, living with sickle cell. I have been around for a very long time. A lot of you may not know me, but I have been a member of SCDAA National Board. I have served on the Sickle Cell Advisory at the NIH. I've worked with the FDA to bring about more information to bring minorities into clinical trials. I have worked at two comprehensive sickle cell centers, one in Dallas, Texas, and one in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work for a pharmaceutical company. I have been involved in a lot of things. So I bring a lot of sickle cell exposure and experience. So my book was done a very long time ago, but I hope that you will enjoy hearing about it. Because as I read through it myself today, I was like, there's stuff that's really relevant here. So I really thank Sheila and Dr. Rowley for giving me the opportunity to bring it back into focus.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Every time I hear you speak, I'm impressed with your background and the body of work that you've done, and also very much inspired. For all of you in our audience, the title to this session is called Helping Adults Live Their Best Lives. And as you can hear from Miss Shirley, she lives with sickle cell, but she has lived her best life. And I can say ditto the same for me. It's wonderful to be here to represent for many sickle cell warriors, their support system, providers, that living with sickle cell does not mean that you live a life of defeat and that it's just all sickness, but it's a life that is vibrant and resilient and it's purposeful. And we're going to jump into the book right now. And the very first question I want to ask Miss Shirley, is this. The title of the book, wow, The Stranger Within. Doesn't that sound very intriguing? The Stranger Within. This
Within me,
particular
the stranger
book,
within me.
well, I'm gonna ask that, but before I move on, I want to
Mhm.
say, sure, this book is available on Amazon because we may get so deep in a conversation we forget to say that. So jot it down if you want to order the book. If you don't have it already, the Stranger Within, and it's under her name Shirley Renee. Yes,
That's my
Miss.
pen.
Go ahead.
So the book is available on Amazon.com, as BarnesandNoble.com, and my publisher, which is Ex Libris. But Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com is where I send a lot of people because it's difficult to go through Ex Libris sometimes. So, but it's called The Stranger Within Me, and I named it that because I was a bit defiant when I started writing the book. I was in the middle of a sickle cell crisis, and I really got tired of this, what I called the stranger invading my life. I didn't like it. I didn't want this thing to keep coming and taking away my fun. So I named it The Stranger, because to me it was something that something or person or a face that would come into my life and interrupt my having a good time or my normal life. And then I would be out of commission for 4 to 5 days trying to get myself together after hurting so badly that I felt like I was being attacked every time. And I didn't like that. I'm like, why would this keep happening to me? Uh, it shouldn't keep happening to me. And um, I kind of fashioned it to a person who was being abused every now and then, that they never knew when the next attack was going to come, but it was going to come. And how you handle being attacked, abused, and then having to get up the next few days and be normal, and be what you're supposed to be, and go to work and do the things you're supposed to do.
Hmm. That leads me to ask you this question, Shirley, and that is, what is it like? There may be people online that they don't live with sickle cell disease, and
Mhm.
we right into like the stranger. But could you kind of give an overview of the good, the bad, and the not so good living with sickle cell disease?
Well, yeah, and it is a good, a bad, and a not so good. There are days that I do have pain, or a person can have pain, and they can function. They can function at a certain level of pain. Maybe for me, it's like a number three, and I could still go about my day and do the things I need to do. Okay, say it goes up to a seven, then I got to get in bed and I got to take some medication, to see if I could stave off the really bad pain. That's a 10. I call it a 15. I don't know where they get that 1 to 10. It's a 15 for me. But anyway, that's the good and the bad of it. I mean, you can look perfectly normal, like nothing is going on, and a person who didn't know you had sickle cell couldn't tell you were in pain if you were at a low pain thing. Now, if you get up to 5 or 6, 7, you might feel uncomfortable, or you might excuse yourself and say, I'm going to go. You might not explain all the time why you're leaving the group or why you're not there. You just excuse yourself, and because you just need to lay down and do the things that you need to do. If it's higher than that, I'm usually in the hospital, but I don't go in the hospital a lot because of the emergency room thing. It's just difficult to get through that system. And it's so aggravating to try to go there, and they don't know you. They don't understand, and they ask you a million questions before you can even get some relief. It's really good if you have a doctor and you're affiliated with a hospital system and you're in that medical system, they have all your records and they know you. But it's difficult. I mean, because these hospitals, they do a lot of training, new doctors and things like that. So they rotate over and over again. So the one doctor that might have been there that might have known about sickle cell, he might not be there anymore. And so you're relying on who am I going to meet in the emergency room and who's going to understand. You know, it's good if you can contact your doctor before you go to the emergency room, but that's not always convenient because you're not always in your right mind when you need to go. It's difficult. It really is. So if you're not in pain, life is good. You know, I call that a good day.
Yes.
And you know, you go about and do the things you want to do, but you just never know that pain is going to hit you or maybe that you've done something that stressed you out, stressed your body out, or did something, exercise too much or whatever that is going to make you go into that crisis. And that's the part of it that's so you can't determine what's going to happen, you know, day to day.
That is the truth. It's very much unpredictable, and right. And though this disease, living with sickle cell disease, be it sickle cell anemia, sickle beta thalassemia, sickle C, sickle D, sickle E, or sickle O Arab, those are the 6 most common genotypes of sickle cell disease, right? Though living with that uncertainty, one thing that I really got from your book, Shirley, is how resilient you are and how you've pushed through some of the trials. You mentioned one time going to the beach with your friends and not wanting people to know that you had sickle cell. You were exposed to the ocean air and you were dressed lightly, you know, like summertime. And how did you cope living with sickle cell in these social situations in which it's very, very much unpredictable? And yet we don't want to wear a banner on our forehead saying, hey, I have sickle cell disease. How did you balance managing your illness, managing your genetic condition, and also managing your life, the resilient woman?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it was right there in my family, first of all, because I grew up in a beach town where the ocean is only 10 minutes away from my mom's house. And we would go to the beach all the time. And when my cousins would come from California or Philadelphia, they'd always want to go to the beach. And I wanted to go too, but I would always get into a crisis because I get in the water, I get out the water, then the breeze comes, and then I start just feeling the pain. It starts at my ankles and comes all the way up my body, and we got to leave the beach. And I'm so upset with myself, even though I can't control it. And I'm thinking I'm disappointing my cousins and my friends, but I couldn't control it. There was nothing I could really do. But we grew up swimming. My mom sent us to swim lessons because in Florida, there's a whole lot of water. You need to know how to swim. And even though I took the swimming lessons, it wasn't a heated pool or anything like that. That wasn't even thought of at that time. And every class I would go home hurting and I would keep coming back.
Yes. My goodness.
A big old dummy, you know, I'm just like defying it. I'm like, you are not going to tell me what I'm going to do. And I'm talking to sickle cell, you know, when I say that.
Right. Did you find you make me laugh because I could relate so much to everything that you're saying. You taking swim lessons and literally having a crisis in the middle of the swimming pool, right? Couldn't even from the middle to the edge. And in one thing you speak about is like speaking of sickle cell, like it's a person. It's like we talk to
Exactly.
that.
I had to speak to it. I had to speak to it because I wanted it to know how mad I was with it. And I wanted it to know it was not welcome in my body, and you're not going to be the boss of me. I'm going to boss you. And yeah, it showed me many times.
You I'm going to ask you questions on two very different points. One is denial, how many sickle cell warriors we can live with denial and just sort of move forward. That's one. Shirley, the question I want to ask you, I'm giving you a double header for the price of one right now, and that is your family's reaction, both to experiencing you as a human being and sometimes their plans having to be changed because of your needs, and also their reaction to your book. So I'm going to sit back because I know I've asked, like, I said it was two, but I put a bonus question in there. So.
Well, I actually went through my whole entire life until I wrote the book thinking that my family resented me because I would spoil the fun all the time. I really felt like they just were like, oh my God, look at this happening again. I felt that and I felt bad. I didn't even want my mom and dad to take up too much time with me. I wanted them to focus on the other kids because I felt like I was just taking too much of their attention. And I didn't realize until after I wrote the book and I had my family read it, that my family was like, we never felt that way. We never felt like you were taking time away. Mm-hmm. They actually had a lot of sympathy for me, but I didn't realize it until I wrote the book because I told them, I said, you all got to read this book, Some of my relatives, and it's not the greatest book in the world, but it was about me and my experience of what I was going through. I had a cousin who told me it was just like a lot of run-on sentences, but my brother told me, I felt like you were just speaking to me. You were just speaking your mind and telling me what was going on in your life and how it impacted you. And I was grateful for that feedback, and some of my cousins, they thought it was fine. It helped them to understand what I was going through all my life and what sickle cell really was doing to me and why I lived a certain way. I had some of my aunts thought that I was cold and withdrawn, but I felt at the time my emotions were, if I got too excited about stuff, because even in high school, if I wanted to go to the dance, if I got too excited about it, I missed the dance. Right. And so it was like, okay, so you got to chill and just be cool, don't have any emotions, just like, So it was interesting to see and hear their perspective. But I really thought that I was always spoiling the fun. And they were like, no, we think you're great as far as this. You go through this and then you get up and then you never complain. You never act like, that, you want sympathy. And I did not want sympathy. That was the biggest thing. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I wanted to be treated just like anybody else. I really did.
Yes, because you are like anybody else. And one thing that I noticed in your book that just tickled me to no end, girlfriend, is that you love to dance and sing. I found that when you shared how you got positive feedback and that you good in yourself, because we always say, come on, Shirley, get up and dance. Could you tell us how having those gifts and those hobbies allowed you to feel wonderful?
Well,
they like not sick.
Well, like that was one of the greatest things in my life, because I said through some of the struggles, I learned that I had some positive talents. And man, that I used to watch TV and watch the dance shows. I know this is taking some people, like they probably never heard of American Bandstand or Soul Train or some of those. I would watch those and I would mimic everything they were doing. I could dance my butt off. But a couple of times I would go out dancing, start sweating, they turn on the fans, and the next thing you know, I'm in pain and have
Boom.
to leave. Yeah. But man, I could dance and I could sing, and I was like, nobody can take that away from me. There's something I know. I could sing in church. I was a soloist. I sang all the gospel songs. I loved music. Music still is very, very important to me. I love music, and I could relate to anybody who was talking about music because that was my thing. In high school, I was in a talent show. We won the talent show. I was the lead singer. And I'm telling you, I was so nervous. I thought I was going to go into a crisis. I was so nervous. And I had never sung in front of people before, except for in church.
Mhm.
But I did it and we won the talent show. And I was like, man, you know what? This is all right. So yeah, I did find out that I had some gifts and I had to be proud of those and realize that I had things in me that were good, things that I could make other people happy
Yeah.
about, things like that. So yeah, so I learned a lot along the way. I really did.
I love that how you seem to be a lifelong learner. I know you and I are getting to know each other all the more, and I'm excited for even that future. I want you to share with some of us warriors and some of the other people, the support people and providers that are online, how you embraced your gifts and how you move forward, because some of us have lived and we've been told more or less the parts that are broken are not perfect, and so therefore the gifts and talents that an individual may have could be suppressed. And I just want you to give some words of encouragement to
Wow.
help people harvest those.
Mhm.
I love reading that part in your book. I really did.
So in my 30s, okay, Dr. Rowley, um, I I was in the gym a lot
Mhm.
because I felt like I looked skinny and weak. And so I started going to the gym and I would try it and I would go home hurting a lot. And then I prayed to God and that was another thing. I knew I had to incorporate spiritual in my life or I wouldn't be able to make it with this disease. So I started to pray and ask God to show me how to build up my muscles and look better. And I was in the gym. I was a gym rat. I mean, I was getting up at 6 in the morning, going to the gym. I would work out for an hour, go home, shower, and go to work. I did this stuff. But I realized that you can't keep up that same intent when you get 60 or so. You have to modify it, you know. But I did line dancing, still do line dancing, Chicago step, ballroom dancing, all of that. I still enjoy it, and can do it. So you just have to modify, some of the things that you used to do. You have to just do it in a different way. So I don't go in the gym with the heavy weights like I used to as a trainer. He would be pushing me to lift 40, 50 pounds, and I was doing it. So now I go in the gym, I get on the treadmill, I, lift the light weights and everything, because the thing is, they work just as good if you do more reps, lighter weight and do more reps. So you just have to learn how to modify things. And I'm learning that more and more. And it's not that I figured it all out, because I'm still getting taught lessons by still doing things that I think that I can still do, like I did at 30. But I just realized that I have to modify it and do it another way, but don't feel defeated. just change the way you do it and just still enjoy, what you do. So,
I love that. I love that. It's a matter of the balance and measuring and listening to your body and
um,
and at those experiences. What I would like to do at this point is that we're 30 minutes into our hour and a half time together. If there are any questions online or with our audience, I would like to open the floor so that it becomes a conversation, just not amongst Shirley and I, but with you guys. Anybody have any questions on the chat or in the comments?
they said no questions yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, this is what I want to share with you all. Please feel free to put your questions on the chat or in the comments, and we will integrate them into this beautiful interview. So far, let me ask, are you guys enjoying this conversation? I hope so, because I'm enjoying it. Just being here and hearing about Shirley's life. Shirley,
And
I do.
want to say that there is no question you could ask me that will embarrass me. I have been in front of first-year medical students that have asked me about pregnancy, about all kinds of things. So you can't really ask me a question to shock me. I have heard it all. So feel free to ask me anything.
I would say that's one of the silver linings that you and I both enjoy being 60 plus.
Mhm.
We have experiences. We are really open and willing to share. And surely for you to say that, please bring it on,
Bring it
bring it.
on.
And I love that. I mean, it really ties into our title of sickle
Mhm.
cell warriors. Hello.
But Dr. Raleigh had asked me a question. She said,
Okay.
what made you publish versus having it as a diary? Can you see that?
I got to put my lookers on. Oh, yes, I see it
Okay.
now. Great
All right.
question.
So let me answer. What I did is I started out journaling because I had to understand what my triggers were. So I would write down what happened the day before to see why I might have gone into the crisis, what I did before. And it helped me to learn what my triggers were so that I would know I would have to do it differently or don't do it at all again. So, but the book was, like I said, the book was maybe what I call a rant. I was upset with getting sick. I wanted to tell this stranger person sickle cell off. And that's how the book started. And I just went all the way through it. I wanted people to understand how the interruptions come in your life. And I wanted, actually, the thing is, when I wrote it, I didn't even think about selling it. I never even advertised it. I didn't, it wasn't for that. It was for me, a lot of me. And later on, when people started to hear about it, I heard that it helped some other people. And I was glad of that. But it wasn't for money. It really wasn't. I published it myself. I paid for the publishing. I paid Hertz for his beautiful drawing. Hertz was a good friend of mine. And I wanted him to have some exposure. And I wanted people to understand how sickle cell was impacting me personally.
Very good. I have two questions. One, could you please show us your book, Shirley? Could you put it up to the camera so that people can see your book physically? If it's at your fingertips, very good. As you can see, there's her book, and the artwork's by Hertz Nazir.
Right.
Thank you for bringing him up. He wonderful warrior, servant, artist, talented, genius, and we miss him. And we really truly miss him.
Yeah,
Second, yeah, Shirley, you know what? I'm sure that there are others online that's like, I want to write a book that documents my life that may encourage others. And we kind of get writer's block, or we just feel a little bit intimidated with the thought of it. Yet it's in our mind and hearts. Could you give some tips and encouragement? Because these days we can self-publish. Can you give some tips and encouragement to provide a catalyst to some of our audience that they would also like to write to help others and to express themselves?
Well, like I said, journaling, it really does help you to have some type of history of what's going on with you. And if you could start journaling, and it doesn't have to always be about sickle cell, but just your daily life, your family experience, you know, how you relate to your family, your advocacy and the things that you're doing out in the community, as far as sickle cell disease. And as Sheila said, I hid it for a long time. I didn't want anybody to know that I had sickle cell. And still, a lot of people of my friends, some of them know and some of them don't know. I share when I feel that it can make an impact on someone's life, but I don't share all the time. So this was my way of sharing without having to, you know, blast it all over to anybody and everybody. And like I said, I didn't really care if anybody bought the book or not. It was out there. It was therapy for me. And I knew if anybody read it, they would be able to, you know, understand what I was going through and why I wrote it. I think sometimes people don't understand why I called it A Stranger. And Sheila and I talked about that earlier, but I felt like I needed to give it a face, a name, a body or something. Even though I couldn't see it, I could only feel it. I couldn't see it, but it was almost like there was just a person that was just punching at me, you know, at different times. And so that's why I said the stranger within me, because it wasn't to me, it wasn't a part of me. It was something that happened to me every now and then. And I didn't really want to identify with it. I didn't want to succumb to this. I'm a sick person. You know, I have to, you know, only can do certain things. I didn't want to succumb to that. So that's why I called it The Stranger, because when you know a stranger, that's not anybody you want to really get to know really well. You know, they're over there, they're a stranger, you know they're there, but like we're not friends. We're not friends.
It's like that title, Stranger Danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Sickle cell, that pain is foreign. And when it comes, it's not welcome. And it's something that you want to go away as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
One thing is that in your book, you noted how your mom, I just applaud your parents, your nuclear family, the support that you had. You had a mom, full-time working mom and full-time working dad, and how they carved out and supported you from your home to the hospital to the ER. Could you share a little bit about the blessing that you had being in that family and what it did for you? Really want to the parents.
My mom and dad were just great. I've heard some other warriors say that their family gets upset with them and they're short with them and they don't want to, you know, help them and whatever. I did not have that problem at all. And I used to be worried that my mom had to go to work every day and she needed her rest, you know. But as soon as she could hear me whimpering in the room, and she'd be right by my side, and she'd put my legs up in her lap, and she would just rub them for me, and she would pray with me and everything. And my dad, he had a full-time job Also, my mom never went to the hospital with me. She just couldn't do it. She never took me, never went. My dad was the only one who ever took me to the emergency room. And he was so patient and so kind. And he would just sit there and wait until they would ask me a million questions and ask for his insurance card and all of that. But he would be patient. And then when they would get me to a room, I would tell him, Dad, go home. Go home and go to bed. Because most of these crises happen in the middle of the night. You wake up at what, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with the
Yes.
worst crisis you ever had. So I knew that they were not getting the rest that they needed, but they never once said a word about it. They never once complained. They never once said, oh, Shirley, I have to go to work tomorrow. I never heard that. Never, ever heard that. So
What a beautiful support system that you had. What about your siblings?
they were there. I'm older. So my siblings were, the two under me are younger, but I had older siblings, but they were like out of the house. They were like a lot older than me, but they would always come and visit. They never let me be in the hospital alone. I got visits all the time from my brothers, from my cousins, from my aunts. Everybody came to the hospital to make sure that I knew that they were concerned about me.
Mhm. What was the impact in your life having such a strong support system in your nuclear family, in your extended family? Could you tell us how that impacted you as a human being?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't know I had a support system.
Okay.
I thought it was just my family doing what they do. I didn't know until later on when I started hearing about having a support system, everything. And I was like, man, that's what I grew up with. I didn't have to build it. I didn't have to make it. It was just there.
Right.
So I didn't know it was a support system. I just know they were always there for me, and they never once complained or said anything, even though I felt in my heart that I was ruining it for everybody else. But until I wrote the book and heard my siblings tell me that they never felt like I was ruining anything for them. They never felt like that. But they never said they felt sorry for me either, which I was very happy to hear.
Yes.
Never said that.
Now, in your body of work that you have helped with patient advocacy and all, and it seems to me what you're sharing is that your family, by naturally loving you and supporting you and just being family, that they provided for you like a model of what you could convey and share with others. Can you tie those two pieces, your professional, work as a patient advocate and all, and that experience? So you took it as natural. It was still beautiful deposits, and you got techniques and approaches that you could share with others, particularly those that whom may not have had that benefit. Can you bridge those two for us?
Sure. Like I said, I worked in 2 comprehensive sickle cell centers. I worked in Dallas, Texas at UT Southwestern. And the doctor there that started the program was Dr. George Buchanan. He was a great man, and he's still living. I'm not saying he's dead. He is a great man, but he taught me. He would let me go into the room with the doctors where they would review patients. He would let me listen to and go into the rooms of patients and everything. So I began to understand the difficulties and barriers that some patients had that I didn't have. And so he would really gave me free reign. We talked about hydroxyurea, and what it meant for patients. I was kind of against baby hug, which was hydroxyurea for kids, because I'm like, you don't know how sick they're going to be. Why would you treat them before you know how sick they're going to be? And we would have discussions like that, back and forth. And he would say, no, I'm going to change your mind and everything. So I had great mentors and I listened to them, and I would I was lucky to work in the comprehensive center, and I was able to bridge the pediatric center to the adult center, because when I started, they didn't have a lot of adult centers. They had pediatric programs, and we were able to build an adult program and get money from the NIH, to build this adult program. That was when they had the comprehensive center grants that they would give out every 5 years. And so we got one of the center grants, and for 5 years, we were funded by the NIH. And then after that, I went to Charlotte, moved to Charlotte, and worked in another comprehensive center, an adult center. And I realized the barriers and the problems that people would have going to the emergency room, running into people that did not know enough about sickle cell, running into not having specialists, of people that were specializing in sickle cell disease. So that became my kind of advocacy, to help people find doctors. So I even was a volunteer for SCAPN, which is the Sickle Cell Adult Provider Network, which is a network of adult physicians. Well, actually, they have pediatric physicians in there too. But that network was to come together and share information about sickle cell disease on the adult level and everything. And they had a website at that time, and people would say, I have a patient that's moving to Boston. Can I find a doctor? I would go in and I would research and find who were the doctors in Boston. I would call people that I already knew. It gave me a network of doctors that knew me and I knew them, and I could ask them all kinds of questions. So that was my way of giving back to the community. If I could connect a patient with a doctor that could take them on and help them and not have knowledge about sickle cell, that was something I just loved doing. And so, like I said, I did it as a volunteer. I started out, they didn't pay me a thing. I just did it because it was something I wanted to do, and I felt like I was giving back to the community.
It's beautiful to be a servant leader and to use your personal experience as well as your knowledge to serve the community. You mentioned a very key challenge area for sickle cell warriors. That is the transition from childhood pediatric care, which is usually fairly good, if not excellent, to adult care. And that transition period is when a lot of warriors are put at high risk. We lose many in their younger years because the care is not there. What did you experience as a human being, as a sickle cell warrior, when you went from pediatric care to adult care, that gap?
Okay, I'm going to answer this question, and then we have a couple of questions that people ask. So there was no transition program when I was coming up. There's no such thing. There was where I lived in West Palm Beach, Florida, there wasn't even a children's hospital. There was a children's floor that they would send everybody to. So there was no such thing as a transition. I was told when I turned 18, you're going to be going to this doctor. And I said, okay, that's where I'm going to go. So there was no I was a very obedient child too. I didn't want to put too much on my parents. I didn't want to put too much on my siblings. So whatever I needed to do to make things simple and to go with the flow is what I did. So it was no transition. Now, once I started working in sickle cell, I understood the barriers and the problems people were having with transitioning because there were no formal transition programs. There are now, but when I was working, there were no programs. So we had to develop days that the pediatric people who were ready to transition, they would come over to the adult side, meet the adult doctor. We would have a little seminar, tell them, what to expect, answer their questions and things like that. We would tell them about if they were going to college, we would tell them to go to the resource center and make sure they let them know that they had sickle cell, and just tell them things that would make it easier for them to transition into adulthood.
Correct. Providing a for success. Providing a success. Okay, I don't see the questions. Let me see. Put my lookers on. This is a question from Rhonda. Welcome, Rhonda. So good to see you here online. What are some of the titles? Very good. Great question.
Okay, Rhonda, I made these up now. The first chapter is round 1, and it talks about me having an actual sickle cell crisis, that I'm out in the gym working out and I'm feeling the pain coming on. And I'm like, I don't want anybody else to see what's happening to me. So I decide to not even go inside the gym. I get back in my car and I go home. And then the next title is The Morning After. This is after I've been through the sickle cell crisis. I look like I have been in a fight for my life because my hair is looking like crazy, and I've been through it. The next title is My Tomorrow, meaning that, okay, things are back to normal and I'm going back to work. And, the next one is In My Groove, meaning that, I'm back to doing the things that I usually do. And then I talk about me. I talk about me, my background, where I come from, Florida. And then I digress and go back to where my diagnosis, the doctor he's telling my parents, your child is sick. And I kind of give some history of what was that. And I talk about growing up and coping, being teased unmercifully by kids because I was so thin and I wore Coke glasses, thick glasses, and I had buck teeth, and I was a mess. I was not cute. And, how I had to cope with those kind of things and what I did to not be around people that were mean to me and how I had to handle it. Then I talk about what sickle cell actually is. And then I talk about going to funerals and how I had to stop going to funerals because it just took too much out of me. And especially if it was a patient of ours, it would make me cry. It would take too much. And then I talk about just being your own advocate and keeping a journal, how I deal with pain now, me and pain. And then the last chapter is The Stranger Unmasked, because I basically have learned how to deal with the stranger, which is my sickle cell disease, and how I can cope and can still manage to do and live my life the way I want to with very few interruptions. I have gone 10 years without ever being admitted in the hospital. And I know that is different. So it can be done. It's just, I'm realizing now that I still have to make modifications every now and then, but it's worth it. It really is. So those are the titles.
Rhonda, did you have a follow-up question or statement to that? If not, we're going to go.
There's another question.
Yes, I would like to read this question. This is a very special, very, very special woman in my life who has been She's been in my life since I was born. This is my Aunt Westland from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hi,
She
Wesley.
she is not only my auntie, but my mentor, my friend, and my road buddy. So, this is the question that Aunt Westland has. Has research improved your medical treatment over the years? Excellent question.
hmm Um, and I would have to say yes. What I started doing is actually signing up for research at the NIH because when you work and have private insurance, they don't pay for certain tests. They don't pay for, they think it's experimental or whatever. So I wanted to be tested for pulmonary hypertension. So when they opened the clinical trial at the NIH, I signed up. And me and my friend Hoxie, if anybody knows Hoxie from Houston, we went to the NIH and we took the test for pulmonary hypertension. Neither one of us were diagnosed with it. But then I started going for other clinical trials, you know, for the 6 minute walk, the follow up for sickle cell, leg ulcers. I did that. I just did anyone I could get into. If I was eligible, I would get into. So I do feel that research has improved my medical treatment, and I think it will continue to evolve and do even more so. Having worked in some of the pharmaceutical areas, there are some treatments that are coming out, you know, and sometimes that I think are very, very beneficial. And I think they're going to help a lot of people. So I look forward to whatever kind of treatments that come out of the marketplace in the future, because I think it's only going to be very, very good, because everybody can't get the cure. I mean, and there is still controversy as to whether it's a real cure or not. So there's a lot of things still that have to be researched and thought about and things like that. But treatments are always going to be needed, always. So I encourage everybody to enroll in clinical trials. It's not only helping you, but you're helping other people too.
Yes, very well said. And Wanda Collins, thank you, Wanda, for being here. This is awesome. Wanda's calling in from North Carolina. I think you know something about those.
I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Charlotte.
Yes. Well, Wanda has asked us this. What do you think, Shirley, of the new STEM research? It's over $2 million cost for that particular treatment.
That is the bad thing about any new treatment or research, whether it's a cure or just a therapy. It's so expensive when it first comes out that it's a barrier to people enjoying it. And I think that pharmaceutical companies need to not just put it out there, but they also need to work with insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, to make sure that people have access to the drug. If people can't get it, what does it matter if it's out there? So I am excited about it, but I'm not excited about the cost.
Correct. And you know, for some of us online, we may not really understand the STEM treatment. So, Shirley, could you give a brief overview of what that is and how it's so innovative in this day and age of sickle cell treatment?
Well, I hate to get into that area because I'm not a doctor or researcher or anything like that. But basically, it changes the pattern that happens with sickle cell, whereas you're not let's see, it's like inserting something that takes that mechanism that makes your blood sickle, or that activity it's taking that away so that you don't have that problem anymore. And that's the best I could say in just layman's terms without getting into trouble. Um,
Right.
Basically, that's what it does. It just takes that mechanism away, out of the way. But there are a lot of therapies that are going to do that also coming in the future. But if you don't, if you get into the clinical trial, you can get access to it free. That's what I'm saying. The only reason I didn't get in is because I was over the age. They have certain criteria that you have to be within a certain age group because they think 40 is old and that you're kind of useless after 45 or so. So most
Right.
of them stop at 40, 50 or something like that. I have
That's
had those arguments also. It's like, let everybody have a chance to do it. Why are you limiting it to certain ages? If they can qualify for it, let them be in the clinical trial too. That's something I'm totally against. You know, if they can qualify, let them be in it. You know, don't limit it to a certain age group because you have to qualify, you know. But they limit it to certain age groups. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way they feel like by the time you're at a certain age, you have so much organ damage that it's not, advantageous. I'll use that word.
right. That's a very good point. And perhaps as research is expanded, because we're on a frontier years right now. This is really new, you know, all of this, the stem cell treatment, the genetic treatment is
Yeah.
all so very new. And we're living in an exciting era in which patients are getting an opportunity to be considered for the therapies. And as Wanda said, the barrier is the cost, $2 million, if you don't have the infrastructure or the recommendation to be put in these treatments. In and of itself, it doesn't exist for you, even if you're in the age category. So it's the baby steps. We're in the initial stages. It's like the neophyte stages, and it's a hopeful, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, surely when we were growing up, there was absolutely nothing. The only medication that was available over the last 30 years had been hydroxyurea. So it's exciting that we're moving forward. And I want to commend you for being available to be involved with research, because many of us coming from the African American community, we have a hesitancy in being involved with research due to things like the Tuskegee experiment with men that had venereal disease, and they allowed it to go its course. So we're getting over that. And again, I really do want to applaud you. And if anyone's online, a warrior that lives with sickle cell disease, and you may have an opportunity to be a part of research, know that you will be serving humanity with that. Because some of the research that is being done, not only is it going to help sickle cell, but it will also help other genetic diseases in the long run.
And I want to make one clarification. If you are in a clinical trial, it doesn't cost you anything. And you can say at any time, I don't want to be in this clinical trial anymore. You will not be penalized. You will not be, ostracized or anything. The clinical trials are free to people who are in clinical trials. The $2 million is the cost of that treatment after it has been released, which all of them pretty much start out that way, very high cost, and they have to work to get the prices down so that people can have access to them.
Correct. Very good. Thank you for that clarification. Here is another question, an excellent question by Kimmy Rion. I may not be saying that. Anderson, K.A. This individual says, what advice could you give young adult sickle cell warriors that are trying, oh, this is such a great question, that are trying to be in the workforce? Shirley, you're the perfect person to answer this.
Well, I always worked. I was fortunate to be able to always have a job from the time I was 18. I would have problems and then go back. And I actually have to say that I had employers that would want to work with me and not fire me and things like that. Now I've had problems getting a job where I had to admit from the beginning that I had sickle cell, but I was able to assuade them of that problem because I'm like, I'm not trying to. I'll give an example. I worked at American Airlines and they didn't want to hire me because I told them I had sickle cell, and I just had to get mad. And I said, look, I'm not applying for a job as a flight attendant, a pilot, or anything that's going to have me up in the airplane flying people around. So I'm trying to get a job as a marketing manager. So I don't understand why you would say to me, I'm not going to hire you. And know that this happened in 1989. It was a long time ago. It doesn't happen anymore. I know people with sickle cell who are flight attendants. I know people who do fly a lot for the airline. So, but this happened back then. And they had to give me a reason. You've got to give me a reason why I can't get a marketing job because I have sickle cell. And they couldn't give me that reason, because that would have been outright discrimination. So I fought a lot. Let me say, I'm a fighter. I'm not going to let anybody get away with anything without we going through it, So anyway, but I know that it is very difficult for some warriors to work. I know that the stress of having a job gets in the way a lot, and it makes you have to take days off and things like that. But what I would say is education is the key. If you can go to school and learn a trade or be able to do something that does not require you to be jumping up and down every day or flying all over the country. And I had to learn this myself. I can't be flying all over to Europe and everything and coming back and thinking I'm going to be okay. But find a skill that you can do. And you may have a skill without going to school, but you could go to a junior college and learn a skill. You can work and get in private insurance. You can, you can make a decent salary. And I would just encourage you to find something. If you're not sure what you could do, I am willing to talk with you on the phone, and we talk about what you like to do and what kind of things you've been involved in and what I would suggest that you might try. Because I don't know everybody's story. So unless I talk to you, I won't know how to advise you or to give you suggestions about things. But you have to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask, because somebody else might have some knowledge you need.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to talk about it, and you have to open yourself up to people so that you can get the necessary information that you need.
Very good. If I may add to what Shirley is saying, Shirley, what you said is so comprehensive. And in my own experience being a sickle cell warrior, and what I've recommended to individuals whom are not even sickle cell warriors, and my cousin Vicki is online right now, and I've shared this with her and her daughters and her son. Volunteer. Sometimes when you show up and you offer your services and you demonstrate to an entity, to management, your skills, your integrity, your good attitude, your teamwork, actually jobs can be created for you. I volunteered on 3 4 different platforms where I just went in to serve and to share the skills I had and to help. And before I knew it, jobs were created, offices were built for me, opportunities were enlarged. Why? Because going in for an interview is one way of getting a job. When you volunteer as a person coming into work, you get a chance to show yourself, but you also get a chance to vet that particular organization. So for that warrior that's saying, well, how do I get a job as a warrior? Consider volunteering in an area that you're interested in, where you want to serve. And I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I can tell you that most entities and most management teams, they're hungry for good workers. They're hungry for people that are going to show up on time and get along with folk and provide their very best. And many places will work with you with flexibility. You may also start part-time. One doesn't always have to work immediately full-time. Way into a job, you build up that stamina and you see what you, but not least, I would also say as a warrior, once you get a job, if you have special accommodations that you need, for instance, if you're in a building with air conditioning, ask for a heater for your workspace. There's different things that you can ask for. Most states have laws that are in place to help with people that have disabilities. The ADA came into place some years ago. And so there are provisions. And I can tell you, if you have a can do, will do, and want do, that's a phrase I just made up. Want do attitude. There is a place for you. I believe Shirley brought up spiritual aspect to our lives and how important it is. And the Word of God says your gifts will make room for you. So I want you to be encouraged that there's something out there for you, and it can be vibrant and it can be encouraging, and it could literally change your life. You can meet people and serve people that will expand your life and bring you so much joy, and also give you the purpose for which God created you. So be encouraged, warrior, that want to look for a job.
And I have to second what Sheila said, because I got at least 5 of the jobs I've had in my lifetime from being a volunteer.
Bingo.
5.
Bingo.
5, just hanging around someplace, volunteering, and you meet somebody and they ask you about your background or what you do, and bam, the next thing you know, you're working, So it works. It does work. 5 times it has happened to me. 5.
That's awesome. Thank you, Shirley, for that. Really appreciate it. What have you benefited? Like, you've gone out there and you've worked, you've served. How would you say working has helped to build you as a human being? Just working.
Well, I started out as a very insecure person, living with sickle cell. I didn't want anybody to know I had sickle cell. I didn't have a lot of education at the beginning. I only had like a 2-year degree that I got in computer programming, but that got my foot in the door. Then I went back to school. I got my bachelor's, I got my master's, and just being exposed to people, and you find out what they're good at and and you find out, well, there's something I know and something I can talk about too. I was a speaker a lot at the sickle cell national conferences. And that's how I really got to know a lot of people, and I never even knew that I could stand up in front of people and talk. But once you know something, people can never take that away from you. So if you have sickle cell and you know about sickle cell, you're an expert. And you can tell other people and help other people and educate other people. but you have to be truly, truly educated yourself. You got to feel your, what do they say? Study to show thyself approved.
Yes.
You got to study and you got to know what you're talking about. You can't get up there and talk and mislead people. You got to be able to answer questions that they may rebut what you say or whatever. But once you have something you know about, nobody can take that away from you. And that's something that I learned very early, that I knew about sickle cell and I knew what that experience was like. So nobody could tell me what I didn't know. I knew.
There you go. Um, we are experts. We live with this disease. And I'm going to bring this back to an early comment you made about going into the hospital and providers maybe not knowing exactly what to do. Please share with warriors how they can be their best advocates, and that if they go into a setting, they don't have to be intimidated. It could be very intimidating. When we're in pain, we can't even think straight. Sometimes you think you're going to lose your mind. You can't even speak
Right.
straight.
Mhm.
Share with warriors, encourage those online how to step up and speak up. And that, if that means also bringing, a support person, if that means walking in the room with your NIH management of sickle cell disease, please talk to us
Mhm.
about.
Yeah. So, you've been in the hospital many times. You know your body. You know what medications work for you. You know which ones won't. You know if this is a normal crisis for you or if this is something different, that people need to really understand that this is different for you. Tell them what works for you. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to bring someone with you. I prefer you bringing someone with you who can advocate for you or even make sure that you're being listened to, you know. But don't be afraid to tell people what works for you and what doesn't, because they don't know your body. You know your body. And if this is, I mean, I know that I have crisis mostly in my arms and legs, but when it's different and it's in my chest or my shoulders, and I know that this isn't normal for me, I know I need to get some help. And so I'm going to call on my resources. I called the nurse at the sickle cell clinic and I said, "Hey, somebody has to admit me. Something is wrong." And to spend like 2 days in the emergency room because they don't have a bed, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't let them assume that it's okay to treat you like that. It's not okay. I do know a lot of hospitals are crowded and the emergency room is, overwhelmed, but you have a serious disease and they need to pay attention to you. So use whatever resources you have. Like I say, I know the clinic nurse and I have her phone number and I will text her and I will say, "Look, I need help." And they will go to work for me. And if you can get that kind of relationship or talk to your doctor about having that type of relationship where you can text somebody or you can write something in the portal to say, "I need help," so that they can get you whatever you need. You just need to speak up. And it took me a while to do that. I used to think I was bothering people and I was afraid to, say anything or have any special things done for me. But now I deserve it. I don't feel like that anymore. I really don't.
Yes. That's excellent. One point that you brought up that is critical in all walks of our lives, and that's relationships. You mentioned that you have the nurse's phone number, that you've made, you've built relationships in which you can tap into, not just a person's professional delivery, but they know you.
Right.
Could you tell us the importance of how building, and it's a two-parter, how building relationships have benefited you, and
Mhm.
so how interfacing with the medical world
Mhm.
and not approaching adversarially to
Mhm.
them, because they're human beings also. Sickle
Right.
cell is a rare disease, and sometimes we expect everybody to know about it. It's rare. So therefore we have to have a little bit of empathy. And
Mhm.
so we share with our audience how relationships and also how working with your medical team as partners and not in an adversarial way and not in a way that we have expectations that everyone should
Mhm.
know of this rare disease.
Right. And definitely building those relationships. I had to build them over time, because I know sometimes we just go to the doctor, we wait in the office, and we just sit there and we don't say anything until the doctor comes in. The doctor gives you 15 minutes and they're out of the office. And, so you talk to the nurse, you talk to the clinical trial person that wants to enroll you in a clinical trial, you talk to the pharmacy person that works in the office. I talk to everybody, and they know who I am because I talk to them all. And the other thing is, I mean, it's sometimes I know doctors can be very, very busy and they don't really have time to give you an hour unless you're very, very sick. They'll give you an hour, but sometimes it's 20 minutes and that's it. And sometimes it's based on their program and how often they tell them they could see a patient, things like that. But you got to talk to people. When they have the walks, the doctors come out to the walk. You can talk to them. You can go right up there to them, talk to the nurses, just get their ear so that they know who you are and what your life is about, and start a dialogue with them. If they have a support group, whoever runs the support group, make sure they know who you are. Don't just come to the support group and sit back and don't say anything and then just leave, you know, eat the
Yeah.
chicken and go. No, don't do that.
Mm-mm. You're you're so right. Eat the food and be gone. Like I'm out.
Yeah,
That is
right.
Shirley, that is so true. It's like don't just be in the back and be a wallflower. Be
Yeah.
no, show up, ask questions, and even thank people for their services. When you mentioned walks and things like that, immediately, and Dr. Raleigh has just gotten in. So this is the perfect segue, Dr. Raleigh. I have found also at our conferences, our summits, at our seminar. Oh my goodness. What a great place to connect with healthcare providers. We can meet them in the hallway. We can
Right.
have lunch with them. They get to know us. There's tips. They'll give referrals. I know patients that have gotten fantastic referrals because they met a physician, and this is a plug at the Wellness Center Summit, and just met out in the hallway. And
Right.
from one meeting, that individual, that family received concierge service.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, walks and conferences and things like that make
Yeah,
all the difference in the world. Relationships are key to everything because when we break it down, we're all human beings.
right.
Well, Shirley, Dr. Raleigh is on, and we are at our time. I would like to say this and then pass the baton to Dr. Raleigh. This has been such a joy. You are a fantastic communicator, Shirley. I'm impressed. I can't wait to get to know you all the more. And I'm sure that our audience they've received so much from your input. And we're just waiting for book number 2.
Oh, they've been telling me I need to write it. I've been so consumed with all kinds of things, but I'm getting there. I really am getting there.
And I want to thank Dr. Raleigh for inviting me to be here. This has been a pure joy.
Yes, and I thank you for the invitation also.
Thank you. Um, you know what? It's so nice. I known Shirley for a while, and it's always nice to pick up another little tidbit. And so, thank you for allowing us into your world, the stranger inside of you, and whatever you all want to call that. Shirley needed to give it a name and to be able to shake the finger at it.
Yeah.
So whatever you all need to do to shake the finger and not allow it to consume, but to rise through it, do that, whether it's journaling. And I'm also plugging the seminar. So whether it's journaling, vision boarding, gardening, sound healing, or anything else that helps you to move through this, do that. I do want to thank Sheila for saying yes, and but it's also because of our relationship. I also want to thank Shirley for saying yes, and for her book and giving it new legs and life, even today. I did want to just make sure that you all know that we already had our randomizer. And so, Lisa Laws, you have won a free copy of Shirley Miller's book. And so, Mary will be in touch with you to be able to get your mailing address so that we can actually send you a copy of Shirley Miller's book. So, yay for that. Yay.
Who was the
Um,
person that won?
Her name is Lisa Laws.
Lisa Laws. Okay.
So Lisa and then LAWS. And so you will get a signed copy. So we will receive that from Shirley and we will go ahead and forward that to you. We're
Mhm.
excited that you were on. Um, and so, you all, this is what we do here at Cayenne Wellness Center. We have a little bit of everything. We have our mini seminars, we have our grand annual summit coming up in 2 months. We have the Hispanic Heritage, where it's that one's in Spanish, but also translated into English. Ask the Expert. But I love these Authors Corner because, um, again, we're bibliophiles. We love reading. And so, and we want to shine the light on those that have taken the time and the courage to actually write it, and then for us to take a peek into their world. So we thank you all. I know that there were still some other questions, and what I'm going to do, this is from Lisa Laws, and I did want to read it. I think we may have to take it offline as well. But what she says is that she has a daughter who is a sickle cell warrior, and now she's a survivor because she actually did BMT.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, she still struggles with pain. She is
Hmm.
thinking of being a psychologist, and she wants any advice into higher education. So, as a psychologist, you got to go through the motions. You got to get your BA, you got to get the MA, you got to get the PhD, you got to do your time. And it is possible then, because that was actually one of my areas was actually pain. And so it is possible, but you gotta do the time. You gotta put in the time.
Mhm.
So I would suggest that you look into that, um, and attempt to locate. You got to locate the school that specializes in that. But first things first, in terms of just kind of getting through. And you're welcome to call me offline as well. And I'll put my number in the chat. I do want to thank everyone: Tracy, Deborah, Wanda, Lisa, Rhonda, Carmen, everybody, Miss Anderson, Renee Kirby, and Darren. He's one of our new CHWs. So thanks, Darren, for actually having been on. He's still learning, everyone. So he's a newbie. And so
Mhm.
it was very helpful for him to understand. again, the lens through your eyes in terms of how you lived your life. Cousin Vicky, and then Sheila's Aunt Westland. We're thankful for you all for actually spending your Friday with us. I do want to give another shout out to the convention and that's going on right now. The convention that's going on right now. So we want to give them all of our wonderful thoughts. People are having a good time. But again, it's time to register you all for the upcoming 16th annual Cayenne Wellness Center Summit, which is going to be in Torrance, California in September 18th through 21st. It is time to register. So go ahead and get that done. And I think we're out. What I'm going to do is Shirley, do you have any final words? And then I'm going to popcorn it to Sheila. But do you have any final words, Shirley?
I would just say there are a lot of people online, and you just have to ask questions. You have to. It's not, you're not going to get any more knowledge just sitting back and listening. You have to be bold enough to ask questions. And I would encourage you to attend as many conferences as you can. And like I say, when you see these doctors present and they go in the hallway and you ask them questions about their presentation, and they will answer you. They really will talk to you. You don't have to be of high status or anything. They really want to help you.
Thank you, Shirley. Sheila, final remarks?
Yes, I would like to encourage everyone whom are here today to pass the word on that this has been recorded. And you can go and you can see it again yourselves, as well as you can share with your community this resource that exists. Because there's nuggets to benefit each and every one of us, whether we're sickle cell warriors, supporters, providers, family members, friends. Please pass the word on and get a chance to view not only this author's corner, but the others that also are recorded. A lot of resources are available through Cayenne Wellness Center, and you can just go to the website and tap into the rich resources that are held there. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. And with that, everyone have a wonderful rest of your Friday and weekend. Stay hydrated. It is still warm across the nation. So stay hydrated and stay well. Thank you again.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.